machine. So as you go in here, like we have a number of different reports that a user can go in there and select on, and there's filter capability that they can go in here and select. I'm not going to go too detailed on this. I'll just kind of pop into a couple of reports to kind of show you what it looks like. So in this view, this is like a spend overview. So this is using like the client's spend classification to really help them identify like how much are we spending in each specific category on both the direct side and on the indirect side. So a lot of times on the audit, like we already have good access to the direct classification, just especially in retail. But then the goods not for resale or the indirect side is sometimes limiting. But this is something that really helps you get into that view, and you can start going in there and filtering on specific spend categories and see who are we spending this money with, and how has that changed over time. So we can look at like information technology and software. So similar to like what we see in merchandise and retail, there's different levels of that spend classification. So this application allows you to get into those details to really see what that spend is, and then everything you see in here is filterable. They could filter on a specific supplier in a specific time frame, and then everything else is also exportable out to Excel. So we even have down to like the invoice detail in here that a user could really utilize this to see what's really going on with their spend. Just go back to the fresh screen here. So one of the things you can do is look at spend trends and spend fragmentation. So looking at spend trends, this is kind of an interesting view that a lot of the clients are starting to get value off of. What we do is we just look at the spend by the category. So especially when you're looking at the indirect spend, what we do here is kind of look at that spend as a percent of the total. So when we look at professional services in 2022, it went from 15.9% of the total spend to 23, it's 19.3%. So those are some of the things that you lose in the dollar value sometimes when you're looking at 568 to 686. It's like, okay, what does that mean? It means an increase, but did our total spend increase, or did the share of that category increase? So that's kind of some of the benefits that the visibility of the solution helps users identify. And then they can drill into this and figure out like, okay, of professional services, what subcategory changed and what supplier changed. So they can really get into the details and understand why did the change occur, and if there's action to be taken, they can take that action, or help explain it internally as they get those questions from different departments in the organization. Okay, just jump back over here. I'm going to go just to the payment overview here. Again, I'm still filtered on my professional services. So this is just kind of limiting to like, okay, like just looking at if I'm the category manager on the procurement team for professional services, then I can filter on this and really just focus on what I need to look at for my business. And so we can start looking at, okay, who are the suppliers that we have spend with, and how are we paying those suppliers? So that's where you can kind of see that we have a days to pay, a weighted average of 17.4 days. So as I start looking at external metrics and so forth, I can start to see that, okay, maybe that's not the best payment term that exists in the industry. So I can start looking at some of these suppliers and see where do I have an opportunity to negotiate a better payment term. And so that's where you have all that information. And if I wanted to focus on, okay, I think I could take some of these suppliers at 30 days and maybe push them to 60 days. So now I can kind of see like, okay, before I start making that request, how am I actually paying them against their 30-day term we have contracted? And then, as I have that, conversation, they're not coming back to me saying, well, you pay me late all the time anyway. So, like in the case of like, this supplier here at 52 days, it's going to be harder to negotiate maybe to 60 days, because the first thing they're going to throw out is that you pay late all the time. So in this case, they can just say like, hey, we want to move it to 60 days. It's only an 8-day difference from what we're paying you right now. So there's a lot of information around there that the user can go in there and really quantify how they're paying, and you'll see that payment performance over time. So this is something that we call like relative change days to pay. So this is again where it's interesting, like, as Patrick was showing on the slide, where Kroger went from 23 days to 22 days. So that would essentially be like a relative change in your days to pay or your working capital DPO. And so what's important there is to see, like, okay, why did it change? Did we negotiate shorter payment terms, or did we just start paying early because we had a change in system? So this is something that can be done all the way down to a supplier level to really kind of see, like, okay, at a total company or category view, what did that performance change look like? And then having the detail to see what vendor changed that, maybe we need to, investigate our payment process to see, should we be paying, as early as we have? Because like, we don't want to, just give up a 1 day of working capital for, no reason. So we really want to have the details in here to see why did that term change. So this has all that down at the vendor level, so you can start seeing at a vendor level, like, what vendor changed and why did it change. So it gives that user that research capability to go in and pick a specific supplier and see that, okay, ADP, not a ton of spend, but it did change, so we can go in and see why. But there's a lot of different views that somebody can go in here and look at and see, okay, on this specific vendor, why did we start paying 17 days earlier than we did last year? So a lot of good insights there that you should capture and take action against.